What was the absolute best moment in One Piece? Was it Zoro's nothing happened, or was it the War of Marineford? Today I wanted to go over the best moment of each arc of One Piece, and maybe we could find out of all these best moments, which one was truly the best moment of One Piece. Now obviously I wanted to clarify there will be spoilers in this video, so I would advise you to watch with care, so maybe click off of the video if you get to an arc you haven't reached yet. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now starting out with the first arc in One Piece, we have Romance Dawn, and at the best moment of Romance Dawn, I have meeting Shanks. I think the part where we meet Shanks in this arc is arguably the best part of it. There isn't really a whole lot that goes on, but there is a whole lot of foreshadowing, that is for sure. And that is why I put meeting Shanks, because Shanks is a very important character in the later parts of One Piece. And after Romance Dawn, we have Orange Town. Now Orange Town isn't really a fan favorite arc. Really, it's one of the least favorite arcs of One Piece. However, there are some highlights of it, and I think the best part of Orange Town was the fight with Buggy. Luffy's fight with Buggy was alright. It was early One Piece, so it's not really much to go off of. But for the beginning, it was pretty decent, and I didn't hate it. But all in all, I think it was a good arc, but the fight with Buggy was definitely the highlight of it for me. After Orange Town, we have Syrup Village. Now again, with Syrup Village, this arc is very hit or miss for a lot of people. This is where we meet Usopp, and we find out where he comes from. And the best part of this arc, in my opinion, is when we get the Going Merry. The Going Merry is such a huge part of the story, and when we get it in this arc, it is such a huge moment in the story of One Piece. Now after Syrup Village, we have Baratie, or Baratie, I don't really know how to say it. And in this arc, we meet Sanji. We find out where he comes from, and we figure out what exactly he's all about. Now, ironically enough, my favorite part in this arc is Zoro's fight with Mihawk. To no surprise, this is a lot of people's favorite part, because it's the most action-packed part. But once again, this fight is a huge impact moment for One Piece. It is a huge part of foreshadowing, and it will come back later very importantly. And after Baratie, we have Arlong. Now, for a lot of people, Arlong Park was the first arc a lot of people really enjoyed. We got to see where Nami was from and her whole backstory, and we got to see what she had to deal with at such a young age. Now, out of this whole arc, I believe the best part of it was when Nami finally came around to Luffy and asked him for his help. This was such a huge moment in this arc and all of One Piece. It's still one of the most respected parts of the entire story today. Now, it was really hard for me to pick between this moment and the start of the Luffy versus Arlong fight, because the way the Straw Hats walked up to Arlong in that part was just so cool to me. But I think the general public would agree that the best part of this arc was when Luffy put his Straw Hat on Nami and officially accepted her into the crew. But moving on, after Arlong Park, we have Logtown. This arc was pretty short, all in all. We got a lot of history in this arc with the previous Pirate King and everything. But I think my favorite part of this arc was when Dragon saved Luffy. Now, once again, this was such a big foreshadowing moment in One Piece. And even now, in the present of One Piece, we don't even entirely know what this meant. And after Logtown, we have Reverse Mountain. Now, this arc was really important for the story because it marks the beginning of when they enter the Grand Line. But my favorite part, and I think the best part of this arc, was when Luffy was drawing on Laboon. In my opinion, this was just such a cool moment to really mark the beginning of their journey in the Grand Line. And after Reverse Mountain, we have Whiskey Peak. Whiskey Peak was a very short arc as well. It was only 4 episodes. But I think the best part of this arc was when Vivi was introduced. Vivi is such a important character in One Piece, even in the current chapters. Her interactions with Luffy is very important foreshadowing for the future of One Piece. And after Whiskey Peak, we have Little Garden. Little Garden is a little longer than Whiskey Peak, but it's still a pretty short arc. There wasn't a whole lot that went on in this arc either, but we got introduced to giants. And I think the best part of this arc was when we got introduced to Dory and Broggy. Dory and Broggy are really important to the story of One Piece even today, again. But after Little Garden, we had Drum Island. Now, all the way leading up to now, Drum Island was the longest arc yet. We got to meet Chopper, and it was a really hard arc for Nami. But I believe the best moment of this arc was when Chopper was leaving the island and all of the cherry blossoms bloomed all in front of him. I think this was such a cool moment and such a perfect send-off for Chopper leaving his hometown. I couldn't have really imagined it ending any other way and it being as satisfying as this. But then after Drum Island, we have Alabasta. Now, for a lot of people, Alabasta felt like the first real arc in One Piece. It was about 40 episodes, so this was pretty long for the previous arcs in One Piece. But I think the best moment in this arc was Luffy's fight with Crocodile. I feel like this fight was such a big part of this arc that I couldn't really feel right picking anything else. Now, after Alabasta, we have Jaya. In Jaya, we got introduced to Blackbeard, which again is a very important character to the entire story of One Piece. There isn't a whole lot to say about Jaya. It's a pretty short arc all in all, but there's really nothing bad to say about it. So moving on. After Jaya, we had Skypiea. Now, a lot of people really hate Skypiea. For a lot of people, this is where they just straight up drop the series, which is kind of understandable. This arc was pretty lackluster for the most part of it, but I feel like you come to appreciate what Skypiea did later on in the later arcs of One Piece. And for that reason, I really don't hate Skypiea that much anymore. But all in all, I think the best moment of Skypiea was obviously Sanji's moment where he faced off with Enel. When he faced off with Enel, he used his lightning to light his cigarette. I think this was by far the coolest moment in this arc. Not much really came close to it. But after Skypiea, we have the Eni Saga. This arc played such a huge part in One Piece and still comes about pretty often in the current chapters. This was a pretty long arc all in all to One Piece, especially this early. But I think the best part of this saga was when Usopp yelled at Luffy to beat Lucci. I think a lot of people may disagree with this and say the best part was when Robin said she wanted to live. But I think I enjoyed when Usopp yelled at Luffy a lot more. I think it said a lot more about the current crew of One Piece, and it was a pretty impactful moment for the current picture of One Piece. But after the Eni Saga, we had Thriller Bark. Thriller Bark is a pretty controversial arc in One Piece. A lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it. But I think it's a pretty good arc all in all. But I think the best moment in all of it is obviously going to be the Zoro moment. And by Zoro moment, I mean nothing happened, obviously. This scene really showed Zoro's true loyalty to Luffy. And it really told us how loyal their crew already was. After the scene of seeing Zoro put his life on the line for Luffy, there's no doubt about it, he would do it again. But after Thriller Bark, we had Sabaody. This was a pretty short arc as well, but a lot of people's favorites. I think the best moment of this arc, all in all, was when Kuma sent the Straw Hats to their respected locations. I think this moment said a lot about Kuma's character, and it really came to show what his intentions were later on in the story. But this was such an emotional moment of One Piece that I couldn't really imagine putting anything else in this position. After Sabaody, we have Amazon Lily. Amazon Lily was an even shorter arc, but I think the best moment of it was when Luffy used Conqueror's Haki for the first time. No one even knew what this was. Everybody was so confused of Luffy's just sheer power. But I think this was such a cool moment in Luffy's character development. I couldn't really, like I said, I can't really imagine putting anything else in this position. After Amazon Lily, we had Impel Down. Impel Down was such a great arc. I think the best moment, all in all, of it was when Jinbei was introduced. Jinbei is such an important character of One Piece. Jinbei is just all in all, he's just a fan favorite character. And after Impel Down, we had Marineford. Marineford is the general public's favorite arc of One Piece. It was a very important and story-shifting arc, but I think the best part of it, contrary to popular belief, was when Shanks arrived. I think this really put into perspective how big this war actually was, even now, because Shanks really doesn't show up for just anything. But after Marineford, we had Fishman Island. Now, like Skypiea, a lot of people didn't really like this arc, but all things considered, I didn't think it was really that bad. The best part of it, in my opinion, was when Joy Boy was introduced in Neptune's conversation with Robin. Like a lot of the best parts, this is a very story-shifting and foreshadowing moment that we had in this arc. Now, after Fishman Island, we have Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard was a very good arc in One Piece, in my opinion, but I think the best part of it was when Law told Luffy about the 4 emperors. This was such a big moment for the story, and it really shifted the story in a way we didn't really imagine it going at this point. And when Law told Luffy that he wanted to go after Kaido, it was such a impactful moment in One Piece, all in all. But after Punk Hazard, we have Dressrosa. Dressrosa was a pretty long arc in One Piece. It was actually the longest arc so far. But the best moment of Dressrosa, in my opinion, was when Luffy clashed with Doflamingo. This really just showed how far Luffy has really came at this point. He was able to clash with Doflamingo pretty much on par. But after Dressrosa, we had Zoe. Zoe again was a pretty short arc. However, a lot of the Straw Hats in Dressrosa split up to go to Zoe early. So for that, I think the best moment in Zoe was when they all reunited. Well, for the most part. But after Zoe, we had Whole Cake Island. Whole Cake Island was a pretty long arc as well, but it wasn't longer than Dressrosa. We got to see a lot of backstory that we didn't think we really needed on Sanji. But speaking of Sanji, I think the best moment of this entire arc was when Sanji figured out that Pudding wasn't who he thought she was. The scene with Sanji standing in the rain, trying to light his own cigarette, was very impactful, and I think this was such a cool moment in this entire arc. Now, after Whole Cake, we have our final arc of the video. We have Wano. Now, like I said, I'm not going to get into spoilers, but if you aren't caught up with the manga, this may be a spoiler, depending on what time you're watching this video. Wano is such a great arc. It's a lot of people's favorites, but I think the best part of it, and not many people will argue with this, but I think the best moment of it was when Luffy uses Gear 5 for the first time. Now, a lot of people will put this moment above all else and just straight up say this is the best part of One Piece, period. That's why I wanted to make this video, to make a discussion on if people actually think this is the best part of One Piece, because it's a fan favorite part of One Piece and globally known at this point, and it's not even animated. But there is so many good parts of One Piece that I'm not sure if this is the best. Let me know if you think Gear 5 is actually the best part of One Piece in the comments. Let me know what you think the best moment of One Piece all in all is in the comments. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all did enjoy. Please leave a like if you did, and I'll see you all in the next one.